All right. Welcome back, everybody, inside the NDL podcast edition once again. This is your regular host, Coach Sammy33, doing a recap of Block 1 here. So let's get started in normal fashion. Uh, Season, I already know Block 2 is open. A couple games have been played. Some pretty big wins already. Get to that later on towards the end. But for now, as usual, look into the top 25 preseason edition. So no surprise that the defending champ, Noel, and his LSU Tigers sit at number one. Um, Almost unanimous in the media poll as they have 12 of the 14, or sorry, 12 of the 13. Mizzou has the other first place vote, and they sit at number five. Um, the top four, at least, are mirror images. You've got LSU, one across LSU, Bama, Oregon, and Miami. And then you start to have stuff change as you get towards the bottom half of the top 10. You've got Florida at 5 in the coaches poll, Mizzou at 6, Texas, FSU, Wisconsin, and Boise. And then on the other side, Mizzou, Texas, Penn State, Florida, Connecticut, and Cincinnati. A little surprised. I guess some insight. I'm a little surprised to see Penn State so low. You know, they had a rough season last year, but you got a guy that finished third in the BCS, I believe. I know third in the polls, but third in the BCS, and the coaches, he's ranked 12. A little surprised to see him that low. Speaking of 12, I mean, looking at the next five, you got Stanford, Penn State, as I said, though they did have five first place votes. Cincinnati, USC, and Connecticut. On the other side, in the media, you've got Wisconsin, USC, Florida State, Texas A&M, and Boise. Um, Texas A&M is another one that surprised me a little. They sit 24 in the coaches poll, and I don't know, Plasma. He had a good. I mean, he obviously won the championship the first season. Last season, he lost in the ACC championship, and Texas A&M. I think it might be another example of coaches forgetting. I believe Black Rain had him last year, and he only played one game, and they weren't in the picture at all. But that's one of the better rated teams in the conference, and Plasma's already shown that he can work some magic on this game. So surprised to see him towards the bottom of the top 25. And looking at some other teams, just gonna kind of look across both. You've got Virginia Tech sitting at 16 in both. Um, he's looking to have a better season this year than he had last season because a lot of people were expecting him to come out and be a front runner for a championship spot or a spot in the championship game, and he had his issues early and had a loss late to Miami. You got South Carolina sitting at 18 in media, 19 in the coaches. Uh, Two-time defending SEC champ, but he's had trouble getting through out of conference play without having too many marks. He does good in conference play once that starts. Obviously, if you're winning the conference, you've got Michigan at 20 in coaches, 21 in media poll. Nick should be fine. They're a really fast team. I know there's other. I think, at least from my experience, Ohio State's pretty fast defensively or offensively. I forget which it is, but Michigan is one of the fastest teams, if not the fastest, in the game and in the Big Ten. So that is automatically going to create some problems for people. So I'm curious to see how he does this season. You got Michigan State down there as well. Um, UCLA was only in the coaches, not in the media poll. After getting off to a good start, struggled down the stretch. So I'm sure he's looking to bounce back, and I'll see him soon enough. You've got, that's the one that was really the one oddest one, I guess, as far as spots in between. I may have this wrong, But for teams that are in both top 25, the biggest polarizing difference, you have Nebraska at 17 in the coaches poll, and then you've got them at 25, tied for 24th in the media poll, the brand new coach. They're be curious to see what he does, of course, as a Husker fan, but really polarizing spot in the standings there. You got Pitt at 25 in the coaches. After Doc leaves, Miller's going to step in. I think he's going to do a good job there. Feels weird seeing a newer coach in the Big East, but I think he'll fit right in. And then another team, I guess that's a little different. Ohio State, you sit at 21 in coaches, 22 in media. I probably could look at Tig's stuff, so I guess I'll pull that up right now since I'm bringing it up. But Ohio State, I can't pull it up, whatever. They didn't have the greatest overall record, but they won the games that matter. They won the conference, so I think they'll be one of the teams to watch and see how they do. As far as the teams that didn't make the top 25, I think I'm gonna log in my top 25 just to have something to go off of. Definitely a little different here. Some teams that surprised me not being ranked right out the gates. I mean, I know there's a lot of things that people factor in, and I'm not criticizing anyone's preseason poll. Just going off the things last season. I like how I did that, and it still didn't do what I wanted to do. Alright, that's better. You gotta keep an eye on the clock here, so I'm gonna always have the Laker, at least get the Laker game running in the background. So let me pull up my poll, just so I guess people can see what I have up there. Definitely am open to be criticized as always. But what I have to start the season, I have LSU at number 1, no surprise. I voted for Doc as number 2 at the end of the season and going from Pitt to Penn State and knowing what Penn State has playing in that conference a couple seasons ago. Or actually even, for that matter, I've been in that conference for like 3 seasons in a row. 2 seasons in a row, if I get it right. Beginning to play Penn State before they got better on this year's game. Got a very talented team. So I think Doc warranted my pick. I picked them to win the championship last season. So right out the gates, I'm going with the guys that I had playing in the last game. 3, I have Miami. I know they lost in their bowl games in Nevada, and I know that Dealer has struggled out the gate so far looking ahead, but he won the ACC. He had a good run with them. At least based on what I saw to end his season winning, coming back and avenging a loss against Florida State, being able to beat BT, figured that he was going to be someone, especially keeping his team and knowing his team. He should be high, have a good finish. We'll see how he actually does with a couple of losses. Oklahoma 4, I know Bear may have struggled on his last run Oklahoma, but I think playing with Syracuse is, having a couple seasons under his belt and this being the last season on the game, I think he's better off. We'll see. Hopefully his run game does better, but watching him play feisty, not sure how you can use that to judge. It seems that he has a different scheme in mind, so I wish him the best. And I got Oregon at 5. 6 feet was a runner-up in the Big Ten with Nebraska. Expect him to do similar. Well, I won't say similar, but that's my pick right now to win the conference. So expecting big things out of him, and maybe getting away from Nebraska is what he needs to play for a championship. So I'm just going to list the rest off in order. I've got South Carolina at 6, UConn at 7, Mizzou at 8, Virginia Tech 9, Stanford 10. And then going into the next 10, I have Florida, Michigan, Bama, USC, Wisconsin, Texas A&M, Texas, Michigan State, Boise, Florida State. Had a hard time putting Texas at 17. Personally, I was trying to figure out where I can put them at to be higher me, it's preseason is always a hard one because so many different things factor in. But that was one when I looked at it before I turned in. I was surprised I had him so low at 17. There's a reason and there had to be a reason that I did it when I was thinking, but maybe I have to reverse my poll making decisions. That was a little bit hard. It's definitely weird to see Boise so low in the top 25 too, because they're always have them a lot higher because Boise's Boise. And then rounding out the rest, I have Clemson, TCU, NC State, Oklahoma State, and Arizona. And not that it really mattered, but I actually graded my top 30, and I can't find my notes here, so disregard. But Arizona, I expect to have a good season. I think he'll surprise a lot of people. I think he'll be one of those under the radar teams that does well. Clemson, I expect to do well too. TCU, I think Jusker's a good player, plays good defense. And yeah, that's why I got top 25. So with that said, let's jump into the recap of week 1. So going off the notes here, at the time, kind of convenient when I did this, there was 27 games played in week 1 and 27 in week 2, so I'm just going to run through the majority of these. First up, you have Western Kentucky beating Army, brother versus brother, and I guess you'd call it a run-a-thon. Both teams combined for 724 yards. Army had 3 runs of 80-plus yards in the win. I'm sorry, in the loss, but a lot of big plays there, I'm sure. It's just a lot of yards on the ground for that matter. And McNeil, receiver for the Hilltoppers, 2 catches for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. And up next was Auburn and BYU. They had a 2 OT thriller going on before EA decided to cut the cord on that one. They always seem to ruin the fun. And they decided to play again from scratch. And Auburn would get a 10-0 lead early, and they would be able to hang on in the end of the defensive slugfest this time. 177 yards combined. BYU had a chance. The Hail Mary was caught inside the red zone and would be dropped. I believe it was 4th and 20, and that would end the shot at OT in that one. You got Michigan State, number 22, beating Cincinnati, number 13 on the road, 17-13. Cincinnati had an early lead, Cincinnati got to stop on a 4th and inches early to help swing some momentum. But Michigan State would answer later in the game with a 14-point third quarter to go up 17-13. And Cincinnati would have a shot to try to win the game at the end, but a drop by the running back out the backfield on 4th and 2 would turn the ball over on downs, and Michigan State would be able to run out the clock from there. You have Clemson winning at home against Nevada. Clemson was up 21-13, and Nevada would score a touchdown in the last few minutes. I believe it was within a minute to go, and the 2-point conversion would be caught, but the ball would be jarred loose before he could get credit for the catch, and it would be no good, and that would be game. And Clemson, Ellington would have 111 yards on 23 carries and 3 touchdowns. Florida State, first shutout of the season, beating Tennessee 31-0. The number 8 Seminoles had 4 INTs and 3 sacks on the day, and their running back Thompson, 204 yards and 2 touchdowns. So being able to control the ground, and excuse me for a second, as I flip this over, I'll try to turn it down. Get the Laker game running in the background. Nice to have Lionel back, that's for sure. And definitely make sure that I have the Laker announcers on so I can get some unbiasedness, because that's the last thing I want to hear is Nugget announcers complaining, because it's so annoying. I don't know. Just going off on that little rant here as I'm getting this set up. It's so hard to watch some teams play on the League Pass. favorite teams to watch, at least announcer-wise. Love watching Miami. That was even before LeBron got there. Love their announcers. They're as close and unbiased as you can get. The Laker ones I like as well. Um, can't stand Boston. Well, I shouldn't be able to stand Boston anyway, but man, I can't stand them. Them or the Spurs. Sean Elliott is one of the worst announcers I've ever heard in my life. Not even the fact that he's so biased, but he just what you see on TV and what comes out of his mouth are two just so totally different. I don't see how anyone could even. If you're in San Antonio, I feel sorry for you. It has to be hard to watch games, having to listen to him. Definitely mute's a good thing. So looks like I'm stuck with another announcer, so game goes on mute. So continuing back to this. Oh, and another one I noticed is really an odd one. Milwaukee. They have horrible announcers too. I don't know why I ever watched Milwaukee play in the first place. No offense to any Bucks fans out there. Their announcers are garbage. So yeah, just gonna leave it at that. I'm not gonna go on this guy anymore. Up next, you have. Oh, that was a really entertaining game. Myself beating Georgia Tech on the road, 24-21. Georgia Tech, forced two turnovers. We had a late surge after getting the lead in the fourth quarter, after Georgia Tech missed the field goal after an interception. They miss, we go down and get a field goal ourselves. They answer with converting a fourth down, and they get a big 40, 50-yard run to take the lead late. And for us, Carswell would have 3 receptions on our final drive, one being the touchdown grab itself, but our tight end making a catch on fourth and 9, I believe it was, inside the red zone to keep hope alive to get the win. Hawaii picking up the win against Troy. Coach Victim, 34-9. Or Coach Victim is the Hawaii coach. Troy was up 3-0. Hawaii runs off 34 unanswered points. Assisted greatly by 7 turnovers, I'm sure. And their quarterback, 227 yards, 3 TDs. I don't know how to say the guy's name. I don't want to mess it up, so I'm just going to skip it. You've got Houston in overtime beating BC 48-45. 35-point fourth quarter by Houston to make a rally. BC, though, would still get the lead late after the game was tied. They would score on a 60-yard TD pass. I guess it was Pontel. And score with 20 seconds left. Then Edwards would run kickback 98 yards to tie up the game with 9 seconds left to force OT. You got number 2 Bama on the road beating Beefy. Sims, 307 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. So Richardson didn't have to do a whole lot this game. Iowa beating Utah State 21-14. Utah State 4 turnovers, and they were down 14. The Garner would get a 52-yard fumble recovery to cut the lead to 4, but Robinson would answer back for Iowa with a 1-yard TD run. I got it on you. So Georgia picks up a win 28-3. Dad beating son. Boykin with a pick 6 early for the Bulldogs to get the scoring going, and defense would be a theme for them as they would get a pick 6 later. Gotta turn away from the TV. It's hard to focus on this when I'm watching Kobe shoot shots like that. That was ugly. And you've got Kansas. They had 5 turnovers on offense, so that's definitely have a hard time with that there. Picking up a win if you can't hold on to the ball, as we all know. Air Force picking up a win on the road against Louisiana Tech 24-10. Louisiana Tech was up 10-0 after a kick return would set up a field goal to start the game, and they would get a fumble recovery on a punt. They would get 24 unanswered points. Air Force would get 24 unanswered points afterwards. As a team, they had 145 yards rushing, and their defense would force 4 interceptions. Arizona picking up a win on the road against Maryland 17-14. Nick Foles with 149 yards passing. Brandon would have a 102-yard kick return for a touchdown also to help out the Wildcats. And for Maryland, Logan would get a 97-yard TD catch to help them One of the longer catches of the season. Surprisingly, it's not the longest one, which I don't think the longest one will ever be able to be done again. Syracuse losing to Miami of Ohio 14-21. Combined 742 yards of offense. Miami of Ohio's quarterback Dicer 24-31 for 310 yards and 2 touchdowns. And for Syracuse, Van Chu, 4 receptions, 68 yards and a touchdown. And last on this page, Mizzou picking up a win at home to start their season, 40-10 over New Mexico State. Franklin won 168 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, and the defense would force 4 turnovers along with 3 sacks. As we go into the last 12 here, as I'm sure some saw, Middle Tennessee State beating Buffalo 38-18, as it was broadcasted in the Florida Network. Murphy for MTSU, 245 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. For Buffalo, Newts and Rivers, both with over 100 yards receiving, and Rivers had 2 touchdown receptions. Nebraska beating Feisty in Northern Illinois 27-0. Burkhead would have 153 yards rushing with 2 TDs, and Compton, linebacker for the Huskers, 10 tackles. Harnish would have 111 yards passing for Northern Illinois, I can't remember their nickname, sorry, Feisty. And he'd have 111 yards passing and 1 interception, as Nebraska's coach would win the first annual St. John's River Trophy, and which would be, I'm sure, a good coach rival in the future. You've got Pitt beating Wake and Coach Block 31-27. The game was disconnected going into the 4th quarter, and I believe Wake was in field goal range, so they added the field goal to make it 24-17. Pitt Graham would get a 76-yard TD rushing touchdown to tie the game, and he would have 147 yards on the day with 3 touchdowns. And after giving up a field goal, Graham would get another score, this time from 9 yards out to clinch it late. Penn State beating Oklahoma State 34-14 in the annual game between T-Fan and Doc. Oki's quarterback had a rough one in this one, leading 7 interceptions, and that is definitely going to be hard to overcome. Malcolm Willis had 2 of those picks, and he also knocked down 3 passes. Safety for the Nittany Lions, no jokes in this one about Penn State. Golden for them was 9 of 15, 165 yards and a touchdown. Efficient, you could ask when you get that many turnovers. K-State beat Purdue on the road 30-21. Purdue had an early lead on a kick return plus an interception, but Brown would get going for the Wildcats later. He had 8-yard score early, and he had 135 yards on the day with 3 touchdowns. For Purdue, their quarterback Marv would have 172 yards passing with 3 touchdowns. Navy picking up one against SDSU on the road 31-20. As a team, Navy rushed for 184 yards with 3 touchdowns, and Hillman would lead the way for the Aztecs, 126 all-purpose yards with a touchdown. Northwestern road win against Southern Methodist 41-21. Northwestern got out to an early start, 28-0 at the end of the 1st quarter. Their defense would have 3 touchdowns on the day, 2 of them in the pick-6 variety. Got Michigan picking up a win against Texas on the road. Nathan BBB playing. It was 31-20. Smith had 115 yards rushing and a touchdown. Texas as a team had 116. And Michigan was up 7-3 at the half. Texas got a score late to cut the lead to 4 to Stoneham. I can't remember if it was a slant or a curl. It was a short route that Stoneham caught and was able to catch and go up the field for a touchdown to help break the game open. It was low scoring early, and then just any way you could score late. They just neither team could stop each other after seeing the game was decided. North Texas picking up the win against Tulane as they double them up 40-20. 682 yards of combined offense in this one. Tulane, Griffin, their quarterback, had 3 lost fumbles, which I'm sure definitely played a part in losing. And I don't even know how to say our running back's name. Darkwa. 145 yards on 17 carries and 2 TDs. And the last couple here, Florida picking up a win against Miami, 42-21. Florida outscored Miami 21-7 in the second half, even going a little more, just going into more of a general sense. The game was tied 14-14, so look at that way. Florida finished the game 28-7 run. Their quarterback Driscoll 464 yards, 4 TDs and a pick, and Harris for Miami 359 yards, 2 TDs and a pick. Got Whiskey picking up a win on the road against Vandy 22-0. Their defense held the Commodores to 61 yards of offense, and White had 227 yards on 28 carries for 2 touchdowns. In the last game, at least when I had my spreadsheet made here, VTech picking up a convincing win against South Carolina 30-7. They were down 3-0 early as South Carolina scored to start the game, and they had 31 answered. Wilson 162 yards on the ground for a touchdown, 78 yards long, and their quarterback was efficient as well. 13-16, 185 yards with 2 touchdowns. Garcia for South Carolina was 10-20 for 154, but the telling stat was the 4 interceptions. So that is what I had for everything played in week 1. I'm not going to add anything right now, so it's going to make this longer than I think it's going to be. But games that I have here that I was curious to see how they would turn out. Of course, OU and LSU. Big ranked game to start the season. Oregon at Ohio State, seeing how one, if Ohio State can keep up with the speed of Oregon and stop the run game, two, how 6 feet does with a team that's faster than Nebraska. As much as I do love them, they are not a very fast team. NC State and UConn, Homie and Dave playing their annual rivalry game. Always good to see how NC State fares to start the season. And this will be the last time that he will have Russell Wilson in that matchup. And you've got Duke at Tulsa. It's an interesting game for the offense. Potential to be a good high-scoring game. And Washington at UK. I know guys were joking about it being the game and all that good stuff. But it should be a pretty entertaining game. Kentucky's a faster team than most would expect. And George and Jay Sense have played a couple times, so it has the potential to be a good game. So that's what I got for week 1. Moving on to week 2. Said also 27 games. We got Western Kentucky again, picking up a win against BC 31-28. They were up 17-0 early. BC would rally, going on a 28-7 run to take the lead 28-24. But WKU would get a 2-yard TD run from their fullback and an option with 24 seconds left to clinch the win. And both teams would combine for 6 turnovers. So a lot going on in that one. But John off to a good start this season. Got Cal beating Illinois 35-7. They were up 35-0 at the half as Cal got off to a fast start. Running back Sofield, probably said that wrong, Sofel, 145 yards, 3 TDs. You figured with me being in Pac-12 country that I'd start getting some of these names right, but I'll work on it. And for Illinois, their quarterback, Mr. Nathan, 6 INTs on the day. So if there was that would definitely be the problem. I like that Brown Bear was poking fun at in his recap. Having some fun with that. It's definitely a tough game when you got your quarterback not being able to hit anything. Clemson picking up one at home, 40-21 against Tulsa. Coach Rivers in this one. Ellington would have another good game, 263 yards on the ground in this one for 2 touchdowns and 95-yard long. And also a kick return of 95 yards by Bellamy. Actually, that might just be receiver stats. I can't remember. I want to say it was a kick return. And Then you got Arizona State picking up one on the road against East Carolina in triple overtime, 55-52. Davis for ECU, 547 yards passing, 3 TDs, 3 picks. For Arizona State, Simpson, wide receiver, would have 66 yards receiving and a touchdown, and also add a 102-yard kick return for one as well. And their quarterback, 234 yards passing with 2 TDs. NC State picking up one on the road against Eastern Michigan. I'm guessing a renewal of the coach rivalry in the PS2 days. Not sure on that. But NC State was up 27-0 at the half. For them, their running back Green, 122 yards on 18 carries with 2 touchdowns, and Wilson, efficient, 74 yards passing with 2 touchdowns. The Hoosiers picking up a win on the road against Florida Atlantic. Wright Baker was 30 of 42, 375 yards, 6 touchdowns. And they had 2 receivers break over 100 yards receiving. Belcher with 116 with 3 touchdowns on 13 receptions, and Wilson with 115 with 2 TDs. Bama picking up a road win 2013 against Iowa. Coach rivals, this one definitely was a lot closer. Bama was up 12-0 at the half, and a Richardson fumble will lead to pretty sure it was a scoring score. No, it was a touchdown. That would make it an 18-13 game. But Bama would get a field goal later to hang in there and pull out the win. And on the day, Bama will force 5 turnovers. Not a whole lot going on offensively, but their defense came through. Kansas State, to be more specific when I make abbreviations here, picking up a win against the ranked Pitt, 16-6. I'm sure Kansas State will be, if not ranked soon, they should be real, like, just points, a few points away from it. They held Pitt scoreless in the second half. They made the proper adjustments. They outscored them 9-0. Syracuse picking up an overtime win on the road against Louisiana Tech, 24-17. They outgained their opponents, 287 to 138. And I don't know what that means now. And I don't know what I wrote that down for, but the running back had 61 yards. Oh, the backup, that's what that stands for. Okay. Cuse's backup got knocked out early or late, but the backup would come in and rush for 61 yards and have the rushing touchdown and OT to pick up the win. LSU picking up the win at home against Northern Illinois, 31-21. Northern Illinois came to play, 4 sacks and they recovered a fumble. And Ford for LSU would have 138 yards on the ground with a touchdown. But their defense and special teams would come through just like they do in real life, and as Noel noted in his recap. Simon with an interception return for a touchdown, and Mr. Morris Claiborne, 96-yard touchdown return. As Noel picks up another win in the Noel Gator Trophy rivalry. And you've got BYU picking up a road win against Marshall, 17-14, scoreless first half. BYU's quarterback Heaps was 8 of 12 for 154 yards with a touchdown to pick. And the pick would actually give Marshall a 14-7 lead, but BYU would finish the game on a 10-0 run to take the win. Miami picking up a road win, 27-24 against Maryland. Well, as for anyone that's played dealer, he's definitely good for these a lot of close, exciting games. 17-7, Miami up at the half. Miller for them, 94 yards on the ground, 2 TDs. For Maryland, their quarterback O'Brien, 213 through the air with 2 touchdowns. And one of the receivers, McCree, 168 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Houston picking up a win on the road against Miami, Ohio. They had a 10-point fourth quarter. Beal, 78 yards on the ground, a 31-yard rushing TD. And Dicer, 211 through the air, 3 TDs and 1 pick. And he was more efficient than, a little bit more efficient than Keenum was in the game, but how's the other shot? But Keenum had the support of the ground game to help him out, help pull the one out. Buffalo and Mr. Trendon picking up a win on the road, 33-28 as his, well, I still expect his road to Nebraska begins again for another season. A 98-yard kick return earlier to set the tone in Lemons. Jackson had 108 yards receiving with a TD. Christian for T-ball, and I believe they're the Aggies. Don't quote me on that, but 268 yards through the air, 3 TDs and 5 interceptions, so a lot going on in that one. Oregon State losing on the road to Northwestern, 24-38. Rogers had an 89-yard kick return, and McCants had 95 yards on the ground in a TD. The quarterbacks for Northwestern, not sure if there's an injury or just a switch. 230 yards combined for 2 TDs. Going into the last 12 here, Coach Rival, Tig, and T-Fan. Okie State picks up the win on the road, 31-7. They were up 17-0 at the half. And yeah, they had a 99.5-yard score for a touchdown. So if you want to be mathematically correct, a 100-yard score, or depending on how you define correct, rounding up, a 100-yard score through the air. That won't be fast all season, I'm sure. Smith with 98 yards on the ground and a touchdown on 20 carries. Pryor was 10 of 19 for 161 and a TD and a pick. Michigan on the road picking up a win 29-0 against Tennessee. Shoelace 200, I think that's 28 yards passing for a touchdown and 37 yards rushing with a score added as well. Sterling would have his second 100-yard game receiving in as many games. And on the road, UAB picking up a win against Georgia, 31-28. Shea would have a 77-yard punt return and also have 115 yards rushing to go with 2 TDs. For Troy, Robinson would have 363 yards and 3 TDs. They had a late score to cut the lead to 3, but the onside kick would fail. Next, UCLA at home against Mississippi State, picking up a win 42-14. Franklin 248 yards rushing with 4 TDs. Defense of the Bruins 7 sacks and 4 interceptions. Mississippi State, Cook would have 82 yards receiving, the tight end for the Bulldogs, and Evans would have 55 yards receiving and a touchdown. South Carolina, Virginia Tech picking up a win this time against UConn 19-15. So in the home series, the road team won in both. For UConn in this one, Moore would have an 81-yard fumble recovery. It's another odd game, I guess, with BT, which is why I like looking at his games. He had an extra point block. Definitely look at the videos of that in the recap. And the videos of this game in general, but that one in particular, that's cool. UConn missed the field goal, and when the game was 17-15, going for 2, it would be picked off by BT, and they would run it back for the 2 points to make it 19-15. McAfee had 4 interceptions in this one and go with 340 yards passing and a TD. Thomas, 184 yards passing, 2 TDs and a pick. And Boykin would have 109 of those yards and a touchdown, as Wilson really couldn't get anything going in this game, so a little bit of a role reversal. Georgia picking up a win at home. Dre beating Beefy 23-7. It was tied at 7 at the half. As Murray struggled 6 of 12, 162 yards and 4 picks. But on the ground, Crowell, however it's pronounced, 103 yards on 22 carries for 2 TDs would be the difference maker. Vandy picking up a road win against UNLV 31-10. Balanced attack by the Commodores, 173 yards passing, 167 rushing. So congrats to Vandy coach for getting your 1 goal. And we'll see what you do in the SEC. Hoping the best for you. Tough sledding out there. You got South Carolina 20-17 over USC as the battle for USC, even though it's still early with Southern Cal anyway. But the Gamecocks came in and handle their business in this one. After Barkley would lead the offense down, and Tyler would get a touchdown to tie it early. A long kick return would help set up a field goal, and later in the second half, the USC would get the lead off of a TD pass on the 3rd and goal, but the Gamecocks would answer. Lattimore with a touchdown run of 16 yards, and speaking of him, he had 134 yards on the day with that touchdown, but the chance to win the game fell short, well, got picked off, so yardage-wise it fell short at the end, as Barkley threw an interception under 30 seconds to clinch the game for the Gamecocks. We got OU picking up a road win against Utah State in their first play game of the season. The game was tied at 3 at the half, but Boyles would make a 40-yard TD catch late in the third to help give them some distance. It's definitely a defensive struggle in this one if you couldn't tell by the score. 6 sacks combined, 7 turnovers combined by both teams. Only thing I could really notice on offense is a little different, I guess, is the advantage that OU had in the rushing game, even with the sacks. 96 yards compared to 24, so my guess is downfield position is what made the difference in that one. Army picking up a road win against Virginia at 34-17. 884 yards of combined offense. I'm just going to pause so everyone can hear that again. Remember, say it again and pause. 884 yards of offense. Crazy, crazy game. And the surprising part is Army, their offense was mostly rushing. 418 yards rushing. Again, another big running game for Army. Fullback, 232 yards on 18 carries for 2 TDs. Quarterback, 164 yards on the ground. 2 TDs, don't know, we had passing there, it doesn't matter. And then for Virginia, they had 421 yards. Quarterback, or through the air. Quarterback was 17-30 with 421. As I said, 2 TDs and a pick. And Snyder, beneficiary of a touchdown, 4 catches for 141 yards. And then look at the last 2 here. You got Wake, 23-0 at home against Rice. Harris, 64-yard TD, 135 yards on the day. And on the ground for Rice, McGuffey, 103 yards. In the last game, Whiskey at home, picking up a win against the Rebels from Ole Miss, 17-7. Ball with 159 yards. And Mackey, the quarterback for Ole Miss, 7-20 for 112 with a touchdown and a pick. Don't know how to say the quarterback's name for Wisconsin, but he had two TD passes on the game. That's it for games played in week 2. So I have 5 also for games I'm looking forward to still being played. And I have a text. So excuse me for a second. Whatever. They suck. Anyway, before I was interrupted by a pointless text. Zona against Arkansas, or at Arkansas. I want to say Outlaw's an Arkansas fan. I don't remember who told me that, but I'm pretty sure that he is. So always curious to see how people do when they play against their own team that they know very well. And he is the guy that I picked to win the Pac South, so I'm curious to see how he does. Baylor at Auburn definitely should be a game potentially that could light up the scoreboard, or it could be a knockdown defensive struggle. You got RG3 for Baylor. Auburn, you've got 2 very capable running backs and, to me, the best tight end in the game. A lot of weapons on offense there if the defenses decide to let them be showcased. You've got Cincinnati, number 13, at number 12, Penn State. Coach Doc and Weiser, and the annual Big East game being moved to OOC. Penn State lost last season to Cincinnati, or Penn State, Doc lost to Cincinnati last season. So, pretty sure he did. Anyway, should be a good game. Two very good coaches, good teams. They've both been successful on this year's game. Florida State at TCU, and those may surprise some people. I actually voted for this game as the week 2 game I wanted to see as the must see. Florida State, very fast, good defensively, good offensively, but Chester's a good defensive coach, so seeing what he does with TCU this season. Last, Minnesota at UNC. Johnny, one of the better user skilled coaches in the league. I'm sure as he plays more seasons, he'll get more recognition for it. Oracle, UNC fan, looking to represent the conference well and run for a division crown to try to win an ACC title with the guys. So should be a good matchup there. So it's 54 games talked about, and I don't know how long it took to go over all of those. Hopefully not too long. I don't have a timer on this. I know I'm at least 30 minutes in because the Lakers were supposed to start at 1:30, but like they always do, they start late. So that's it for games played. Looking at the cup here, there are still 20 games I believe that still need to get played. So looking at the cup, everyone I'm sure commented on. I don't even know if I was in the thread, but there's some interesting games in the cup. So I'm going to look over some of them, not going into great detail. Shell playing against Corey. Good game there. Ball State winning 24-14 to advance. What else jumps out? I'm sure Dave was probably happy to see Buffalo lose to USC. Definitely was interesting playing Trenton, one of the more entertaining games I've had this season. Uh, there's some things I saw him do that I'm not used to seeing anyone do, so it caught me by surprise. Um, which I guess is what Hister in the open forum was talking about. That's what I get for missing the board for a couple days. It seems like every time I go away for a while, the good thread goes up, and then I look at it 9, 10 pages later, just like with the off topic of the Soka. I'm not even gonna comment on that. I'm pretty sure everything that could be said has been said about that one, so let's leave that alone. The upset, Florida State losing to South Florida 13-10. That's what I was kind of getting at earlier. Good game here, Cincinnati beating Texas A&M at home 13-10. A matchup of ranked teams. Georgia Tech beating Ohio State 31-22. So at least in terms of being a ranked upset and team rating, but after what I saw from Georgia Tech a couple days ago, I expect them to have a good season. Miami beating Houston 42-35. Houston almost had a close game there, able to hang around with Miami. Matchup of top 10 teams, Boise and Mizzou. Boise takes this one 31-24 on the road. 4 overtimes, Arizona State and Nevada. Arizona State picking up the win 50-47. Who would have the trip to overtime? I really hope it wasn't the same coach. That's the only reason I'm looking here because that was stuff that I can't find. Arizona State. Yeah. So you look at that in the cup, a triple over or a 4 over quadruple overtime win, and then by 3, and also a triple overtime during the regular season by 3. So apparently Arizona State is gonna play to be the Mr. Excitement, trying to take the title from Bueller in that one. But congrats on the win. And the ups, well, I need to be careful with my words here. I don't want to say an upset because Coach Big Red is a good coach and Auburn is a good team. But as far as ranked 44-32 over Oregon, A big win for them. Hopefully that'll go well for them in their season. Navy beating South Carolina upset, but it could be that South Carolina is struggling this season. They beat them in overtime, getting the touchdown at the end, 41-38. Rain, good on that one, but South Carolina, that one's gonna sting a little. Just interesting here, 24-5, just noting the 5 is Syracuse beat Cal. Safety, don't see much of those. And I'm thinking that that's going to be it for the expected wins. Pitt having to slide by Virginia 27-24 on the road. TCU beating Virginia Tech. Like I said, Chester, have a lot of faith in him and his defense. 24-14 on the road. Good win. Wisconsin beating Bama at home 2014 in round one. So that's a big game there. And yeah, that's it for the Cup. There's still a bunch of games to get played. And some decent solid matchups in there. Not going to go into that. It's going to take too long. Or we'll leave that alone. And week 3 and week 4, we've already had some games played. I know I'm going to forget by the time that I get back to this. But as far as what I've seen, the noted ones that I'd like to bring up now would be for week 3, Wisconsin winning on the road 24-13 over Miami. Big win for Wisconsin. Obviously, as they're off to a hot start, just like they were last season with different coaching. Nebraska 7-6 on the road over Mississippi State. God. Rival teams are killing me today. Notre Dame 30-13 over Michigan on the road. That was aired on Nick's network, the Rodden network. And Penn State beating Clemson at home 34-20. Matchup of two good teams there, and the future will bode well for both of them. And I'm not going to touch on other games down the road. Touchdown already did that in his report for 3 and 4. Cool. Moving on to week 4, the few games that have been played so far. What stands out? Michigan State beating Notre Dame 24-21. So Weasel's off to a good start again. Oregon 31-10 over Miami. 300 yards on the ground by Michael James. And pretty sure I felt a little twinge there just thinking about that. So I know I'm going to have to see that soon. Wisconsin 26-20 over South Carolina. And Texas A&M at home 27-17 over Penn State. So, of course, because I jinxed Penn State, actually I was going to do one of these earlier on, and when I saw this, I just figured I'm going to have to try to not jinx teams this season. I feel like I did that all last season, so sorry on this one, Doc, but I'm sure you'll get things rolling again and be in contention down the stretch. So what I would like to look at now is a section that I wanted to call something that had to do with panic, but not really feeling creative right now. So, yeah. We know it's the last season of this year's game. There are people that are playing to keep the team they have. There are people playing to, like myself, playing to keep UFC. You have people that are playing just flat out to win. Put themselves in a good situation to win. So, looking at what we have here, there are some teams out there that may be looking at hitting the panic button here. So there's a couple that I wanted to pull out here. Miami was one. Mizzou also in the Big 12. Or not also, but in the Big 12 is the also that I'm referring to. And I think that's probably going to be it for now. I don't think there's any others. Oh yeah, there's it. So, yeah, had a couple here in this segment to look at early. And again, note that this is early. Things can, it's just how it is on this game. Things can turn around, just like in real life, the blink of an eye. So don't read too much into it. But you got some people that, or some fans that definitely hit the panic button. So one I'm going to look at is South Carolina. Um, Not exactly the ideal start that they were looking for. Again, they're 1-2 right now in this block, or in this block, and so far this season. They have had some issues, but they got a win against us, a close win. But they had a loss to Whiskey at home in their only home game so far. So I don't think there's any reason to panic in South Carolina right now. Yeah, Garcia has not thrown a touchdown pass and has 5 interceptions. Um, the run game probably is not getting as much as their coach would like. 126 yards on the ground with Lattimore in 3 games. But there's no reason to panic right now. The defense will get things together. Only got one pick in 3, but it was a big one. It was a game clincher. And they're still, as far as I can tell, still getting pressure. So looking at their upcoming schedule, they've got Vanderbilt at home. As far as on paper, that's a very winnable game there. Auburn is definitely going to be a tough one. And the next 2 blocks are going to be huge because you got Georgia in this block now. He did beat Dre last season, but this season will be in Georgia. And their next 4 games are going to be SEC games. Vandy, Auburn, and Kentucky, 3 in a row at home. They're going to have to get off to a good start. And Vandy and Kentucky, on paper, should be winnable games. And Mississippi State on the road. So South Carolina can turn this 1-2, and there's no need to hit the panic button. This could easily turn around to being 6-2, and everyone relaxes. But they've got tough games late with Florida and Arkansas, and then the rival game late against Clemson. But all you can do right now is just kind of look at what you have going on in the here and now. In the end, I think South Carolina will be fine. Next up, I have Missouri. Now, granted, they are only 1-1. Their win was against New Mexico State. Their loss was to Bama, which is not anything to be ashamed of. Which is also another reason why I'm not reading too much into it, and I feel pretty confident in saying that Mizzou will be fine. Um, their next game is New Mexico at home, and the next block they've got only one game. It'll be OU on the road. That is going to be, oh man, it's going to be a tough game. Good defense. I think Barras will have his boys playing better this year than he had the last time. That will be a big game for Missouri, but I feel very confident in saying that they're going to be able to hang in there and get things on track in conference play. It's nothing to be worried about. One loss is not a big deal. Up next is UConn at home. And again, this is one that I'm not going to hit the panic button on. He lost to a tough Virginia Tech team. Um, had a chance to win it there, or to tie it there at near the end. 2-point conversion got ran back the other way. But you got NC State up and rival games there. I believe Davis won. I don't know how long the streak dates back to, but I know he's won the 2 on this year's game. And up next after that, you got Middle Tennessee State and Eastern Michigan. So, I mean, they're on the road. Those should be 2 bounce-back games there to kind of get him off to a good start at 3-1. And then you got West Virginia and South Florida coming in. That West Virginia game will be a big one, but I think they'll be fine. So one I'm not really sure I want to hit the panic button on just yet, but I'm kind of leaning towards is Miami. Granted, their losses are to Florida, Wisconsin, and Oregon, and those are 3 tough matchups there. But they lost all 3 of them. The Florida one was close. Things got out of hand in the second half. Oregon, close in the beginning, and things getting out of hand as well. there's some issues right now in Miami. One being not being able to keep up scoring wise with having as fast as a team as they do. Um, you need it. They get a lot of yards. They've got over 1,100 yards in their minus sack yards, 1,000 yards in their 4 games. Harris, 825 yards passing, not bad, but the 3 picks to go with the 3 TDs, not helping matters. And on the ground, Miller is only averaging about 50 yards a game and about a touchdown. So that's something to look at there. The ground game, Miller had a really good season last year, and he doesn't look as of right now that he's off to as good of a start. So they've got to get things fixed and get them fixed fast. Defensively, not bad. 4 picks, more than their handful of sacks, I believe 8 sacks, so 2 per game. But really, it's with the offense. Offense can't turn the ball over, and they've got to get the run game going. So for this team, unfortunately, because of their letter rating, I do like Dewey. I think he's a great coach. I'm going to hit the panic button right now. Yeah, they've got Vanderbilt coming in the next block, but they've also got Virginia Tech. With the way this team is rated, um, 3 losses, and Virginia Tech coming in a 4th loss there, even with a full bank, could make it hard to keep these guys. And you still, down the road, you've got Florida State coming in. So things are not going to get any easier. And for that matter, North Carolina got a coach that's been there for a few seasons. Georgia Tech, the second season with those guys, and got a different offense that's being a little bit more efficient. It could be a very rough stretch here. If they don't get by Virginia Tech, things could be looking pretty bad. But it's going to be hard at 1-3. Yeah, conference play they're 1-0 in conference play. Yeah, I'm going to hit the panic button. Still come back and look at these guys after the first 10 weeks are done. But this is going to be a tough hole to get out of. And then last, a little lame to some probably, but I'm going to have to add myself at 1-1. Not necessarily because of, it really is just looking at what the ratings are at USC. There's not really any defense going on here, and the offense is not as explosive as is needed. The South Carolina game was a struggle for a lot of things. Granted, they are an A. It was definitely an offensive struggle. We couldn't do a lot of things that we were hoping to, but the one thing they keep coming back to is run defense, and defense in general. Defense is not playing good, and Georgia Tech exposed us for that too. They ran the ball all over us, and we couldn't stop the pass against them either. And their coach doesn't like to pass the ball, and he was more than efficient at it. So, not hitting the panic button yet, but giving it another block. Utah coming in, but the Arizona games get a much better idea of where this team is going to be headed, depending on how they play against Arizona State and Arizona. So, not hitting the panic button on USC as of yet, but definitely some things need to be fixed on the defensive side of the ball. And the last segment here, some surprises. Yeah. Where should we start? I'd like to give a shout out to Utah State for one. Um, Granted, they are 0-2. They played 2 very tough games against Oklahoma and Iowa. Probably know who it was to begin with. But yeah, they are 0-2, but an impressive showing thus far, and it was Iowa. 7 to Iowa, 10 to Oklahoma, and they kept the game close enough. So, doing their job there. Where else to look? John at Western Kentucky has really got the run game going. And the funny thing is knowing that they really can't pass at all. A quarterback couldn't pass even if he wanted to. And yeah, he's got Rainey and Jake's doing a good job controlling the ground there. So he looks to play a vital role in what goes on in the Sun Belt. They're competing for a conference crown. Um, Auburn off to a 3-0 start. Not so much that it's a surprise, but um, definitely doing a good job to start the season. BYU, Mississippi State, and Marshall doing a good job running the ball. Defense is playing very efficient, fast, creating turnovers, getting pressure. And only other game he has open is the game against Baylor, so curious to see how he does in that. His defense is Baylor's got a good offense, so they're going to have their test there, and they've got South Carolina coming or going to South Carolina when the next block opens. I already talked enough about Arizona State. I don't want to say it's a surprise, but definitely off to a good start. And no, I think that's probably going to be it for looking at that. Oh, Navy 2-0. Give Navy props too. Good start. Some craziness early on in their season. 62 points in their first two games, and they're on 41. So a little extra scoring there. And Houston had his struggles this year's games, some, but two good rallies early on in the season and picking up another win in another game. So 3-0. Don't care that his opponents are 1-6 on the season. He had to make plays in the fourth quarter, and that's a sign of a good coach there. Not buckling under pressure and getting the job done. So congrats to Houston. 3-0 out of conference play. The two of them being on the road. And didn't want to look too much at the big teams, but in the Big Ten, gotta look at Michigan State and Wisconsin. Weasel had a good season last year. Kind of went under the radar, so I still feel like he didn't really just been going on the under the radar on this year's games. 3-0 so far, and you've got Whiskey. Kane is 4-0 with them. Got the ground game going as most would expect you to do with Whiskey. 89 points in his first four games, while only 40. So doing a good job of scoring and keeping people out the end zone. So that's going to be everything that I'm going to take a look at here. Oh, and even though I mentioned them earlier, Kansas State 2-0. Give them props as they we finished tied for second in the conference. They're either tied for second or finished third. Can't remember if BBB had one more win than him in conference play, but not bad at all. Good start. Kansas State should be ranked soon as they were close. If I'm not ranked in the media poll, but definitely they were coaching close in the coaches poll. My words right here. So that's going to be it for looking into games played and all that good stuff. Only two other things I would like to mention here. One is our awesome tech guy at NC State, Mr. Holmes. One for two things. One for the ticker, very awesome, and even more so the fact that you can adjust the speed and the colors. Just the man never fails to amaze us with the things that he does. Definitely helps to make this league as cool as it is with little things like that. And I know it's a lot of work that some people here may take for granted. So just want to say a big thanks for that. And also for the link to be able to watch games live on the website, which is also very cool. Got to test that out twice, and so far so good in liking that. Especially, well, let me just end it for Homie by saying, for me and the rest of the guys, we really appreciate what you do for the league. So a big thanks for that, and yeah, very, very cool. And going to that, which is what I was trying to multitask and talking to, is the broadcasting. Very, very, some very entertaining games that we've seen so far this season. I've tried to watch as many of them as I could. Um, I've watched the games that Knicks had on there. As a matter of fact, I watched all of next season. Good stuff. The game against BBB, an entertaining game, close game. I like it because um, partly to go to Trina's thread for just to touch on it about the varieties in the offense. Like I play, I see like I the coaches that I play a lot. I can imagine how they would play when they play other people. I've watched my dad play some games. I've watched my friend Sean play some of his games, and vice versa between the three of us. So we kind of our offenses are different. It's nice to see other people because when you look at doing the coach reports and all that stuff. No, offense is a side of the ball that I enjoy playing the most. So I'm liking to see other people play their games so I can see what they do that's different from what I do. So definitely have seen some different schemes out there, some things that I may want to try myself, some things that I think it'd be cool to just to watch. Maybe not something that personally that I would do, but it's been very fun. Definitely have to give a shout out to Feisty. True story. I'm sitting here. I'm watching Feisty play yesterday against Bear Ass, laughing at his, not really laughing at his frustration, but laughing at some of the humorous things that he said. And yeah, my mom came downstairs because she thought I was playing the game and comes down like, I didn't know you're playing, you're losing. And she just gets confused because I'm sitting here, on the laptop and playing a totally different game. Like, oh no, it's the guy in the league. He's playing online and I'm watching him play. And just the look on her face for one, the fact that you can actually broadcast your game, she didn't know you can do that, which is, she was surprised by the tech in that. And two, she also was entertained by Feisty talking. So Feisty definitely have got a good following here and watching your games. Make sure you keep that mic open and keep posting games because we love watching it. And be watching some other games too. So look forward to trying to at least everyone that's doing these. I like to at least catch one or two of your games if I haven't yet. I've caught almost all of the ones that have been posted. So yeah, definitely very cool. Good for the league, as Noel said, and on the board, and we'll see how it goes from there. Hopefully this bill, I don't really want to talk about it too much because I feel like it's been talked about way too much between me and my friends the last couple of days. So I don't know how that bill's going to turn out, but at least in the meantime, I'll enjoy watching everyone post your games. Try to get this a little earlier next week so it can be up before the block opens, or at least for people on Saturday. But I'm going to go ahead and sign out for now. Next week will be a podcast. I think that's my last. And next week will be a podcast. I'll still be here in Colorado. And on the 12th, I go back. So can't promise that I'm going to have any video then. So probably not looking at having a video one up until probably 2 weeks from now. Give myself some time. I know I'll be excited to have that stuff back, but I don't think I want to sit there Thursday and Friday and mess around with that. Got to get things in order for school, and I've got plans for the weekend going back. So thanks for listening and tuning in. Have a good weekend, everybody. Happy New Year. Don't get too wasted out there, at least driving while wasted. And yep, that's all I got.